بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, explanation of Imam An-Nawawi's 40 Hadith. Explanation by Shaykh Saleh Al-Fawzan حفظه الله. حديث الأول حديث 1. عن أمير المؤمنين أبي حفص عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال: سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى، فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله، ومن كان هجرته لدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. Hadith 1. The leader of the believers, Abu Hafs, Umar bin Al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, said, I heard Allah's Messenger ﷺ saying, certainly, actions are considered based on the intentions, and everyone gets the recompense according to what he intended. So, anyone whose migration is for Allah and His Messenger, his migration is for Allah and His Messenger. Ayna'am. But the one whose migration is for worldly gains, he gets that, or for a woman, he marries her, and the recompense for his migration is as for that for which he migrated. Reported by the two great leaders of the scholars of Hadith, Abu Abdullah Muhammad bin Ismail bin Ibrahim bin Mughira bin Bardizbah al-Bukhari, and Abu al-Hussein Muslim bin Hajjaj bin Muslim al-Qushayri al-Naysaburi in their two collections of authentic narration, which are the most authentic books combined. Dawud rahimahullah comments this hadith with the hadith of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, which is agreed upon to be authentic. Imam al-Bukhari has collected it in his Sahih, and Imam Muslim also in his Sahih. So it is mutafaqun alayhi, agreed upon, and the mutafaqun alayhi, agreed upon by the two great scholars, al-Bukhari and Muslim, are the highest degree of authentic narrations from the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Here Rahimullah began his book with this hadith for the purpose of giving a reminder on the importance of an-niyyah, correct intention, and what the awda and other than him from those who carry out good deeds must commence such with sincere intentions for Allah, the mighty and sublime alone. Likewise, Imam al-Bukhari, may Allah shower blessing on him, commenced his Sahih with this hadith to give admonition on an-niyyah, and that the awda and other than him should remember this hadith when they do good deeds, so that it is done for the sake of Allah, the mighty and sublime alone, and the deed does not become mere exertion, benefit of any benefit. This hadith is among the narrations of al-Jawami, simple expression with comprehensive entailment, and the Prophet ﷺ is blessed with the Jawami al-Kalim and lucidity at speech. So he will speak few words which he will entertain a great deal of knowledge and extensive benefit. With regard to this hadith, the people of knowledge say it is one of the four hadith around which Islam revolves, and they are: firstly, this hadith, innamal a'malu binniyat, certainly actions are considered based on their intentions. Secondly, the hadith, inna halal bayin wa inna haram bayin, certainly that which is lawful is clear, and that which is unlawful is clear. Thirdly, the hadith, izhad fima aidi nas yuhibbaka nas, hold back from that in the hands of people, and people will love you. Fourthly, the hadith, min husnil islami mar'i tarku ma la ya'ni, from the perfection of the religion of a man is that he leaves what concerns him not. In this regard, Avasifiyya said, the foundations of the deen in our view are words. 4. From the words of the best of creatures, leave ambiguous matters and hold back, and leave what concerns you not, and act with sincerity. These are the four hadith. His, that is the verse here above, is saying, leave ambiguous matters. This is the last part of the hadith. Inna halal bayin wa inna haram bayin. Certainly, that which is lawful is clear, and that which is unlawful is clear. Hold back. This is from the hadith. Izat fima aidin nas. Aynam, hold back from that in the hands of people. Leave what concerns you not, is from the hadith, min husn al-islam al-mar'i tarku ma la ya'ni, from the perfection of the religion of a man is that he leaves what concerns him not. Act with sincerity is taken from the hadith, inama al-amalu binniyat, certainly actions are considered based on their intentions. He's saying, innama إنما, as it occurs in the Arabic text, it is a particle of restriction. It affirms the ruling for what comes after it and negates some of what comes before it, as in Allah's sayings. إنما الزكاة للفقراء والمساكين. The zakah only for the poor and the necessitous. So it is from the particles of restriction, and restriction means affirming the ruling for what comes after it and negating some of what occurs before it. Certainly, actions are considered, that is, actions are considered in the sight of Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, based on the intentions, that is, the aims of the doers. And niyat is the plural of the word niyyah, which is the intent in the heart. So, consideration is not only with regard to the mode of the action of the doer is greatly considered. If he intends the face of Allah, then his action is for Allah, and if his intent is for other than Allah, then his action is for other than Allah. This is what the hadith points to, and it is from the Jawamil Kalim. Hence, he's saying, certainly actions are considered based on the intentions, means based on the intent of the doers and their leanings. Thus, it is important that he makes his intention purely for Allah in all his good deeds. The meaning of al-amal, actions, in this connection are the ibadat, acts of worship. As for the worldly actions, they do not basically require intention. For example, that one eats or drinks, or wears his clothes, or drives his car, they do not basically require intention. So, the meaning of al-amal, actions, in this connection are the ibadat, acts of worship. As for worldly actions, they do not basically require intention. For example, that one eats or drinks or wears his clothes or drives his car, they do not basically require intention. So what is intended here by actions are the acts of obedience. They are those that must be based on sound intention. Then he ﷺ said, and everyone gets the recompense according to what he intended. In this sentence, an emphasis for the sentence before it, or it is independent. There are two views regarding this. The first view, some of the scholars view that it is an emphasis for the sentence before it and an extra stress to what it points to. The second view, it is independent and not an emphasis, and this is the most preponderant position. This is because to consider a statement independent is more preferable than to consider the same statement an emphasis. As such, he is saying certain actions are considered based on the intentions, implies that the consideration of an action is based on the intentions of the doer in terms of correctness or voidness. So if his intent is for Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, alone, then his action is correct. But if his intent is for other than Allah, then his action is vain. This is in terms of correctness or voidness. As for his saying, and everyone gets the recompense according to what he intended, this is from the angle of reward, that is, it will not be rewarded by Allah except if the intent is for Allah. If it is for other than Allah, then he does not have any reward with Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, as he the Most High says, من كان يريد الحياة الدنيا وزينتها نوفي إليهم أعمالهم فيها وهم فيها لا يبخسون أولئك الذين ليس لهم في الآخرة إلا النار وحبط ما صنعوا فيها وباطل ما كانوا يعملون. أي نعم. Whoever desires the life of the world and its glitter, to them we shall pay in full with the wages of their deeds therein, and they will have no diminution therein. There are those for whom there is nothing in the hereafter but fire, and vain are the deeds they did therein, and of no effect is that which they used to do. It is contained in the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, إن أول الناس يقضى فيه يوم القيامة ثلاثة رجل استشهد فأوتي به فأرفه نعامه فأرفها فقال وما عملت فيها قال قتلت فيك حتى قتلت قال كذبت ولكنك قتلت ليقول هو جريء فقد قيل ثم أمر به فيسحب على وجهه حتى ألقي في النار. The first category of those to be judged on the day of resurrection comprised three sets of people. One whom was martyred, he will be brought, and the favors granted him, and the favors granted him will be mentioned to him, and he will acknowledge them. He will be asked, "What did you do with them?" He will say, "I fought in your cause until I was killed." He will say, "You lied. Rather you fought so that it will be said, he is courageous," and it has been said. Then he will be dragged on his face until he is thrown into the fire. Why will he be thrown into the fire? Even though he was killed on the battlefield and apparently he was fighting in the cause of Allah. The response: because his intention was not for Allah. He intended that he should be praised with the courage and bravery, and that had been said in this world. In the world, he had achieved what he intended of people's praise, and so he has no reward with Allah in the hereafter. And Allah wrongs not any person in any bit. The second: ورجل تعلم العلم وعلمه وقرأ القرآن فأوتي به ليعرفه نعماه فعرفها فقال ما عملت فيها؟ قال تعلمت فيك علم وعلمته وقرأت فيك القرآن. فقال كذبت ولكنك تعلمت ليقول هو عالم فقد قيل أي نعم، وقرأت القرآن ليقول هو قارئ أي نعم فقد قيل، ثم أمر به فيسحب على وجهه حتى ألقي في النار. One who has acquired the knowledge and taught it, and has recited the Quran, he will be brought, and the blessings granted him will be mentioned to him, and he will admit them. He will be asked, "What do you do with them?" He will say, "I acquired the knowledge for your sake and taught it and read the Quran for your sake." He will ask, "What did you do with them?" He will say, "I acquired the knowledge for your sake and taught it and read the Quran for your sake." He will say, "You lied. Rather you acquired the knowledge so that it will be said about you, he is a scholar, and that has been said. And you recite the Quran so that it will be said of you, he is a reciter, and that has been said. Then he will be commanded to be dragged on his face until he is thrown into the fire." This is from what makes it incumbent upon the student of knowledge to make his intention pure for Allah, the Mighty and Sublime. In studying and acquiring knowledge, his intention should not be to look down upon people or to seek job placement and attaining the paltry things of this world with his knowledge. His intent should be for Allah alone, the Mighty and Sublime. Seeking knowledge and teaching it are from the noblest deeds, and as such he should not divert it, seeking worldly benefits. He should intend the face of Allah with it, and whatever he is given of money, if he is given, is only supplementary and not something basically intended. The third, one upon whom Allah bestowed wealth, and he expends it in things that are available. So apparently he is generous giver, and spending the cause of Allah is no doubt from the best needs. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ورجل وسع الله عليه وآتاه من أصناف المال كله فأوتي به فعرفه نعماه فعرفها فقال ما عملت فيها؟ قال ما تركت من سبيل تحب أي نعم وأن ينفق فيها إلا أنفقت فيها لك. قال كذبت ولكنك فعلت ذلك ليقال هو جواد فقد قيل ثم أمر به فيسحب على وجهه حتى ألقي في النار. And upon whom Allah granted enormous wealth in different forms, he will be brought and he be told of his favors, and he will acknowledge them. He will say, what did you do with it? He will say, I did not leave anything that you loved, that it is spent upon, except that I spent it for your sake. He will say, you lied. Instead you did that so that it will be said of you, he is benevolent, and that has been said. Then he will be commanded to be dragged on his face until he is thrown into the fire. So if these nobodies will be in vain and waste away on the day of resurrection due to the intention of its doers and their bad intentions, then it is more serious regarding other good deeds. This affirms to the Muslim that he should make his intention sincere for Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, when he carries out any good deed, including the salat, fasting, pilgrimage, the lesser pilgrimage, giving charity, seeking for knowledge and teaching it, commanding good and forbidding evil, inviting to Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, and others. It is important that he gives attention to his intention and regularly bring it to mind in all his deeds to make them sincerely for the sake of Allah, ridding his mind of show off. This is because one is human, sensitive to show off and love for praise, so one should dispel this intention when it occurs to him and make his intention sincere for Allah, the Mighty and Sublime. Regarding the love for praise, a poet said, both the illustrious and the neglectful desire encomium. The love for encomiums is instinctive in man. Man is human. This is dot of love for praise and encomium occurs to him, thus he should get rid of it and make his intention pure for Allah alone, the Mighty and Sublime. Then he sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a practical example of this hadith. He gave the illustration with hijrah. Hijrah is moving from a land to another, from the land of disbelief to the land of Islam in order to preserve one's religion. He, the Most High, says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا, verily those who believed and immigrated and strove hard and fought. So Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, brought forward the Muhajirun. Muhajirun, those who immigrated from Makkah to Medina, before the Ansar, those who hosted the Muhajirin in Medina. In terms of mentioning and praise, this is because they left their lands and abodes and went to aid the deen of Allah, the Mighty and Sublime. And as such, they are better than other than them. Thus, hijrah is a great honor and noble deed. However, it is not the hijrah that is absolutely consequential. The most significant thing is the intent of the one migrating. If he migrates, intending to aid the deen of Allah and His Messenger, then his migration is to Allah and His Messenger. Considering his intention, it will be accepted in the sight of Allah, and he will get the reward of the one who has done the hijrah. If he set out immigrating and dies on the way, it is written for him that he is an immigrant, as Allah the Most High says, وَمَنْ يَخْرُجُ مِنْ بَيْتِ مُهَاجِرَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ يُدْرِكُهُ الْمَوْتُ فَقَدْ وَقَعَ أَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. And whoever leaves his home as an immigrant unto Allah and His Messenger, and death overtakes him, his reward is then surely incumbent upon Allah. With regard to his good intention, Allah the Mighty and Sublime will write the reward of the immigrant for him, even though he died on his way. This is so if his hijrah is to Allah and His Messenger, that is to aid Allah's deen. Hijrah will continue until the day of resurrection, based on this saying. Immigrating will not cease until repentance. Saying, لا تنقطع الهجرة حتى تنقطع التوبة ولا تنقطع التوبة حتى تطلع الشمس من مغربها. Immigrating will not cease until repentance ceases, and repentance will not cease until the sun rises from its place of set. So the Muslim is in need of migrating at all times. When the practice of his deen is made difficult for him such that he is unable to publicly practice his deen, then he migrates to another land wherein he will be able to publicly practice his deen in order to preserve his deen. وَمَنْ يُهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَاعًا. He who may immigrate in the cause of Allah will find on earth many dwelling places and plenty to live by. An-Nisa, ayah 100. He should migrate to another land wherein he can publicly practice his deen and properly worship his Lord, the Mighty and Sublime. As for his saying, لا هجرة بعد الفتح, there is no immigration after the conquest. What is meant by hijrah here is immigration from Makkah, because after its conquest, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it became a land of Islam, and so immigration will never be done from it. There was migration from it while it was under the control of the non-Muslims, and they were oppressing the Muslims and preventing them from their religion. But when Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam became triumphant over it, it became from the lands of Islam. It became from the lands of Islam. So, if a person immigrates from Makkah to Medina after the conquest, he is not considered a muhajir, that is, one who has done hijrah, because the immigration at that time lacks any necessity, and Makkah is better than Medina and other cities. But as for for migrating from the land of disbelief to the land of that of Islam, it continues, and as such, there is no conflict between both narrations. He's saying, so anyone whose migration is for Allah, this is the first category. He is the one who makes his intention for the hijrah solely for Allah, and Allah accepts his hijrah and writes him as from the muhajirin. Whenever that happens, because hijrah is continuous, it should not be said this is restricted to that before the conquest. It rather holds whenever the need arises. So it is legitimate. Anyone who migrates at any point in the time gets the reward of those who migrate. The second category, the one whose migration is for other than Allah, so his migration is to that which he intended, and he has no reward with Allah, the Mighty and Sublime. As he said, but the one whose migration is for worldly gains, he gets that. That is, he immigrated from the land of disbelief, that of Islam, and his intention was not the deen. His intention was rather that there is good time in the lands of Muslims, worldly pleasures, trade, and things of worldly delight. In that case, his migration is for worldly gains and not for Allah, the Mighty and Sublime. And the reward of the muhajir will not be written for him, although his action was apparently that of a muhajir. However, consideration is for the intention and not just the action. Thus, if he migrates from the land of disbelief to that of Islam for luxury or worldly pleasures or trade or affluent living, he will not be written among the muhajirin, and will not get any reward for his hijrah. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, or for a woman he marries her, like the one who migrates to marry a woman is interested in, who will not assent until he comes to her land, and she is in the land of Islam, being strongly desirous of her, and she says to him, I will not marry you while you reside in the land of disbelief. So he migrates to the land of Islam in order to marry her. Such has no reward of hijrah in the sight of Allah, even though the apparent thing is that he made hijrah, but because intention is not the deen, he only intended to marry the woman. No reward for hijrah will be written for him with Allah, the Mighty and Sublime. He therefore loses the reward of muhajir, and Allah knows what is in the heart. What is in the heart. Allah Most High said, وَتَعْلَمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. Say, will you inform Allah of your religion, while Allah knows all that is in the heavens and all that is in the earth, and Allah is all aware of everything. Thus, no one knows what is in the hearts except Allah, the Mighty and Sublime. As for people, they do not know. The blissful niyyah intention is the heart. No one knows it except Allah, and uttering it is an innovation. So the Muslim should not say, I'll give intention to pray, or I give the intention to perform the pilgrimage, or I give the intention to give charity, because this is an innovation. The reason being that the place for intention is the heart. It is a heart-related action and not an act for the tongue, and declaring it may in fact be show off. It is not also established that the Messenger ﷺ enunciated the intention when he wants to perform the salat or when he intends to do any deed. Rightly, it is reported from him that during the Furlough pilgrimage, he ﷺ entered the state of Ihram, consecration for Hajj, saying Labbaika Umratan wa Hajjan, meaning I respond in obedience to you to perform the Umrah and Hajj. This is not enunciating the intention, rather it is enunciation of the intended which is the right that he intends. Does he intend Hajj? Does he intend Umrah? Does he intend to make Hajj Quran? Does he intend Hajj? Does he intend Umrah? Does he intend to make Hajj Quran? Does he intend to make Hajj Ifrad? Does he intend the Hajj? Does he intend the Hajj Tamattu? So he specified the right he intended. It does not mean that he uttered the intention. As such, he did not say, I give intention for the Hajj, or I want to perform the Umrah. The expression I want to is not permissible, even though some scholars of fiqh view its permissibility. However, this is an error. What is reported about the Messenger in the right is with regard to specifying the right that he intended, and such is not connected with enunciating the intention. Therefore, it is not permissible to utter the intention, neither for the salat, nor the zakat, nor any other good deed one acts upon. Rather, one should perform it without uttering the intention, because Allah knows what is in his heart. Even if he says he intends the face of Allah, and it's not true, Allah knows what is in his heart, and the false statement is of no benefit to him. So initiating the intention is innovation and show off, and this is an important issue because some people continue to initiate the intention during the tawaf, circumambulation of the Kaaba, and during the salat, and when they want to do any good deed. This is an innovation. Allah has not given a proof of that, even if they affiliate themselves to Imam Shafi rahimahullah, that he opined on the intention. This is refuted from 3 angles. First, this is not identically reported from Imam Shafi. Secondly, even if it is identically reported from Imam Shafi, it is not an evidence because Imam Shafi is a mujtahid one who competently carries out juristic deduction. He could err and could also be right, and the evidence is in the words of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and neither the saying of a Shafi, nor Ahmad, nor Abu Hanifa, nor Malik. The statement of a scholar cannot become proof until it is in line with the evidence. Thirdly, what is reported for Shafi is that he said, the salat is not like other than it. One will have to commence it by giving remembrance of Allah. And what's intended by giving remembrance of Allah here is saying Allahu Akbar, meaning Allah is the greatest. In any case, the niyyah is a heart-related act, and it is not permissible to initiate it. Allah proved the Bedouins who said, we believe He the Almighty and Sublime said when addressing His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولم يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم. Say you believe not, but you only say we have surrendered in Islam. For faith has not yet entered for faith has not yet entered your hearts. Until he's saying, قُلَ تُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهُ بِدِينِكُمْ, say, will you inform Allah of your religion? So Allah, blessed is He and exalted, does not need you to tell Him of your intention by saying, I intend such, or I did such and such. Allah knows this without you telling Him. Glorious is He and exalted. Therefore, be mindful of rectifying your intentions and making it in your mind rather than enunciating it. As regard mentioning the intention during slaughtering, that is not an enunciation, because he's saying Allahumma minka wa laka wa an Muhammadin wa ummatihi bi ismillahi wallahu akbar thumma dabah. Oh Allah, it, that is this animal, is from you and for your sake, on behalf of Muhammad and his nation, in the name of Allah, and Allah is the greatest. And then he slaughters. Is a supplication and uttering what is intended and not in a certain intention. It is like mentioning the Hajj rite. So when you slaughter the sacrificial animal, you should specify what you intend. It is for you or your parent or any other person. Thus you specify for the purpose of distinction